back to another video, and today's video is going to be slightly different. We're just going to do some experiments with watercolor and this diffuser. So we're going to use this and have a look at a couple of effects that can be created. So we're having a look at figures, obviously, and what we can create in the landscape. So one of the great things about the diffuser is that it can blur things and create nice granulating effects. So that's one of the great things. So let me just pop in a bit of distance in here. I'm just quickly washing a suggestion of a sky. That'll do. There we go. We might as well pop in a foreground while we're at it. Just a quick wash in here. Coming a bit warmer as we get closer to the foreground. That's with some raw sienna, and the other one was French ultramarine. And that will do it. Okay. So at the moment this is wet and we really need to wait for this to dry, except one of the little effects that we can create without the diffuser even, we will get onto that in a second, is kind of misty distant trees. So we'll just use a touch of this Payne's grey plus some of the ultramarine that we already had. And we'll just dot that in. And then let it do its own thing. By that I mean it's just going to blur up and bleed up. And this is great for distant trees, especially on colder days as well. There we go, we'll just leave that. So this is dry enough for us to continue. Let's just pop in some details of these figures. I say dry enough, let's just test that they are dry enough. What should we do? Let's have some blue in here. And we've got a red for the bigger figure. Actually, we'll make that one not so dominant. So you can see this is all diffusing. This is not quite dry, but that's going to add to our effect. Let's try some of this yellow, cad yellow. I'll pop in that. I think we'll make this figure at the front here a bit duller in terms of clothing. Bigger with a brush. I'm going to go blue, but I'm going to mix in as I go along, so that just keep it quite warm. So you can see this diffusing away. kind of effect that you get wet into wet, really. We'll show you how we can get more of these kind of blurred effects. Let's just pop a bit of dry brush in here. These figures' legs. And we ought to have some detail in the back there. Probably cool those down because they're farther away. Don't need anything too fancy. You don't really see them much that far back. Yep, this is dry enough. I'll pop in another stronger layer back here of suggested trees. A little bit of dry brush there. Get a bit of variety, otherwise it's all looking a bit samey. And then again, thinking about water, will soften off the edge of this. Just clear water. And here, but we'll leave that sharper. I'm going to put in some dry brush on these marks, just make sure it's dry enough. This is coming in. That'll do. And then we'll put in some shadow colour as well. We will get to the effect of the diffuser at the right time, which is not quite yet, until we get this finished up a bit more. This is just crimson and the blue again. So far back. We'll make these a bit stronger in here and a bit longer. You get a later part of the day. That got a bit messed up because it was wet. So we'll correct that by drying that out a little bit. In fact, what we really needed to do was have a smaller brush. That would have helped. There we go, I don't want those two to be joined up. And the final little thing we can do on here before we go into the effects is pop in a little bit of this foliage that we had here from this tree. Trees that, when you're doing the branches, push on and push off. By that I mean you're pushing down, if you can see that. And then as we go up, I'll lightly let that come off. Put in a couple more because otherwise it's going to look a bit odd. Just have one or two. Just pop in there, you can see that diffuser nicely. With a bit of foreshortening, which means it's coming towards us a little bit. we'll pop in a few sort of hedgerow type things in here, just to give a bit of variety in line. And of course, bearing in mind the principles of bigger shapes and smaller shapes, creating more impact in a painting rather than having everything the same size doesn't work. There's a kind of wintry feel to this. We'll pop in some of this blue and this Payne's grey just to give some variety to this foliage, otherwise it's all got brown everywhere. So make this one a bit bigger. Okay, we're just going to let this dry and then we'll come into the concluding part. So we're getting to the end there. We're just going to finish off a little bit. We'll show you the diffusion. I'm just going to pop in a foreground shadow all the way across here. Hopefully it'll be a bit different to the one of the character. Retain that. If there's something over this side coming in, doesn't matter what it is, just bring that in there. Could be a tree, could be a building if we square it off a bit. But anyway, doesn't really matter what it is, it's the idea. We've got this granulation going on here. It's the bit I really wanted you to be aware of. You can see that down in the shadow. And when we diffuse things, we kind of blur them, as we know. If we go in really close with this, it's just going to blast all of this pigment, the paint all over the place, and we don't want that. I'm touching this to feel if these are dry. These characters are dry. So you have to be a way away, which you won't really see on the video because this diffuser will be out of shot. But it kind of needs to be about 6 inches away. And obviously on the end of these nozzles you can move them to have lots of water coming out, or fine sprays and so on. So I'll just spray in and hopefully you'll see what happens down here as I do. Just get it loaded up. There we go. I didn't want much, but you start to see it break up in here. Let's just have a look on this tree. Look, if I spray in here, what effect's going to go on there? So you can see it breaking in and blurring around. It's quite good for sort of distant blurs as well. So just wet this paper here. You can see it all starting to blur off again. It just creates more atmosphere to a painting. And then you let it do its own thing. You can see here, look, breaking out into a nice little granulation on this tree. Really, really good. See if I can zoom in on that so you can see that. Yeah, there we go. So just here, just diffusing away, and it just creates a bit of atmosphere. The main thing with the painting, we've just made this up as I've gone along, but is to have a focal point, and that focal point needs to be sharp, not blurry. Everything else can be blurry, but we need to have the focal point that's going to have the sharpness. So I'm going to let this dry and then go back in on this character, just to make, probably these two characters actually, just to make them the focal point. Okay, hopefully that was useful. And again, if I just zoom out a little bit, we can see the way that's sort of diffused in here and then created much more granulation by just adding some more water. So the final bits now is to sharpen up, as we said, the focal points. So some burnt umber in here. So we're just going to try and get rid of some of this blurriness, I guess, by just sharpening things up. We're just going to sharpen these two figures up. We'll leave everything else as it is. Let's come back in with this sort of purpley red mixture, but I'm going to make it a lot stronger now for this character here. So it's that one. And we'll go even darker here with some Payne's Grey for this character. And pop the legs back in a bit stronger. Both the characters so they're not blurred. Check that out there. I'm kind of just about done on this. Make that arm a bit longer there. That's quite nice. Walking action going on, and then these others, you can see how that places them blurry in the distance. What was really nice as this dried off, you can see some of these beautiful effects in here on the tree, as we said, on that tree, and in this shadow at the foreground there. I could just sharpen up a couple of bits and make the eye go here a bit more. Don't want to go too mad on that coming in here. And a bit of dry brush, why not, across the back there to suggest the hedgerows and so on. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Diffuser can create some lovely effects, and you just have to experiment with it. Anyway, remember to subscribe, to like, and thanks for all you guys who subscribe. We're now over 1,000 subscribers, which is great. But you know what? Still 80% of the people that watch my videos have not subscribed, so please subscribe. Our regular content, try and get weekly every 10 days, and I'll catch you later, and happy painting.